Today I want to talk about unlocking your creative potential and what that means to unlock your creative potential. Listen, all of us inside of us, I believe everybody has a brilliant mind. It's crazy what goes on up here. And creativity, creative potential is not just for the lucky ones. It's not just for the super smart people. And I'm on a mission to help people realize that. Here's the thing, we're not all called to be the same. We're not all called to be a copy of one another. We're not all the same. We don't all work the same. But there are certain ways to cultivate and pull out of yourself the best that's inside of you to impact the world around you creatively. Now, when we're just starting out in what we're doing, if it's in business specifically, but also in other areas of life, it's good to find a mentor, templatize, what you've seen worked and things like that. But we're not called to be copies of one another, or you, if you're building your business, if you have a passion for something creatively. By the way, business is creativity that is manifest by creating resources and creating resources that transfer value. So I actually see business as a form of infinite creativity. And a lot of people don't see that, but whatever you're doing, serving another person is creative. And the way that you do that, one of the ways that a lot of people struggle with sales is they struggle to be truly creative with how they were created, what they're designed to do. And they're trying to do what they think they should do, what somebody told you you should do, or what looks like what somebody who should be doing what I want to do would do. Now, that's a great way to get started. That's a great way to test the waters, but it won't sustain you long term. It won't sustain you to find what somebody's doing, do what they're doing, and copy it long term. It'll only let you go just under where they're at, just below where they're at. But what allows you to stand on the shoulders of those who've come before you and go 10 times further is unlocking your creative potential, whether it's in business, whether it's in art, whether it's in speaking, teaching, writing. Just how you communicate with people is creative. Whatever that is, and it's unique for everybody else. If you've ever had a moment in your life, where you felt the most creative, where you felt like there was nothing stopping you, that you could do anything, think about that moment. Think about that single, maybe an isolated incident, a period of time in your life where you could do anything. Many of us, it's when we were young. Sometimes we have waves of that. And I want you to realize that it's actually possible to tap into that at all times. Now, we're not always going to be at the high, the peak of just being able to create infinitely, but we can cultivate in ourselves our full creative potential and unlock parts of it that are usually dormant to allow us to problem solve. Problem solving is all about creativity, because if it's a problem, it means that there's a unique way to get around it. So you have to be creative. So this is what I'm talking about. Unlocking your creative potential in any area comes from being vulnerable with yourself. And vulnerability is kind of a buzzword these days, I realized. I didn't know that. But what it is that so often when we're worried about making a mistake, when we're worried about being right, what other people think about us, it actually shuts down parts of our neurotransmitters where creativity comes from, and actually prevents us from being creative. We are actually self-sabotaging that. And many people do that to not get in trouble, to sustain a job. For instance, you get in trouble enough times at that job, you're probably going to shut off that creative part of your brain that got you in trouble right there. But creativity comes, to unlock creativity comes when you remove all of that fear, when you remove all of that limitation, and you just vulnerably realize, I can make a mistake. If I get in trouble, it's cool. I can adjust, learn from it, and see what works. There's even creative ways of working inside as an employee, talking with your supervisors to help them come up with that. And at the end of the day, though, your supervisor needs to have a desire to care to listen. But that's not your job to help them do that. And if you're not respected somewhere, I recommend going somewhere else. Go where you are respected. But in that, realize the creative mind unlocks its full potential when it's not worried, when it's not scared, when it's not in a state of stress, a state of anxiety. And when we eliminate that, it allows us to do more, accomplish more, because it flows out of that state. Now, here's the thing. The troubles, the hard stuff, the hard work, those things, they're not going to disappear. They're going to always be there, actually, unless you choose to walk away from them. Most people choose to walk away from their troubles, but sometimes some of them are actually good. And so you can actually have a state of mind, a state of being where your trouble doesn't cause stress. You actually see it as an opportunity, a challenge, something to be creative with, and then that unlocks the potential as well. I did a podcast on that this week, changing your perspective on hard work to get unstuck. But I want you to realize this. Creative potential comes out of a place and a state, the most vulnerable state that you can be is joy. Now, there's 2 movies on Netflix that I also would encourage you to watch. If you have Netflix, The Call to Courage with Brene Brown. It's really good. I like it. She talks about this. She's like the vulnerability expert, okay? That's why it's a buzzword, is pretty much because of her. But she really talks about this, that the most creativity comes when we're not afraid to make mistakes. We actually have a failure tolerance, a mistake tolerance, to where we tolerate a certain level of mistakes to then learn from them. And then that lets us go further. So she does a real good job of explaining that, way better than I can. Another one is called The Creative Brain. And it talks about where creativity comes from and how to unlock parts of your brain, and how the best creators, the best creative minds have been able to unlock that creative part in their minds. And it comes from not being in a state of survival, but thriving, of abundance. Creativity is a form of abundance. A lot of people look at abundance as monetary. Abundance purely is this: my heart is so filled up, I'm overflowing. And out of that overflow is where creativity comes from. And I believe truly the infinite potential is when you align yourself with the creator of the universe that created you. And from that, your creative potential is locked in and connected to the exact same force, God, that created you and all of this around us. You're not that creative to create all of this. But if you can connect with the creator of the universe, the creativity flows through you and you can create more. And that's a whole other topic about that. I've been spending time with God. Actually, the more I meditate and not focus and strive to get stuff done, my creativity goes like 20, 30 times up. And so if you're somebody that believes in that, there's a lot there for you, just spending time in prayer, spending time in the presence of God, and then creativity flowing out of that place instead of fear, shame, all of that. So often, the fear, the worry of making mistakes, it prevents us from doing what we were called to do and what we were created to do. But if we realize it's so much bigger than us, that's why I talk about, you got to make your goals bigger than you. Our creative potential can be unlocked. The movie The Creative Brain, there's one line I saw from it. The most creative, original thoughts, original inventions are generally by taking things from thousands of different points from our experience and then being vulnerable enough to just say, let it go. And then you flow from a state of joy that allows you to create something original that's inspired by, all of these different things. We're all inspired. There's nothing new under the sun, but there is inspiration that comes from what exists around us, what we can see, and that allows you to unlock your creative potential both in business, problem solving, and the arts. So I want to encourage you, if you're somebody that struggles with this, if you struggle with being original, you feel like that even that fraud syndrome, that whatever, I'm not that good, that whatever you feel inside, whatever your mind is telling you, let me know. Leave that in the comments below. What do you feel? What are your thoughts when you hear me talk about this? And I want to help press into this. I'm going to make some podcast episodes on this topic. I'm going to press more into unlocking your creativity and accessing the limitless potential that was planted inside of you when you were born. And I believe that this is how we can impact the world, connect with others. If you combine the creativity of 2, 3, 4, 5 people, it's exponentially greater and allows us to communicate and just absolutely do the impossible. So grow your life, everybody. Grow your mind. That's funny. We'll talk soon.